Is this the show?
Let's
Is
get
this what
this
people?
going.
Is this what people come here for? Um,
Yes,
this is the show.
this is the show.
I'm trying
Welcome
to.
to the show.
Yeah, when the jingle goes here. Do do do.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to the internet. Okay, so we've got a lot of topics, sort of, and we can rearrange these if you all have your Trello board pulled up. But we've got quite a few topics, sort of, on the docket. Um, I guess we should just do some group news, sort of like at the top of everything, right? Um, Boy, what a year, right? We hit 10K in our main trans educational group, so that was lovely. Um, and really impressive. 7 months. I went back and looked. It took us about 7 months to get to 10K users. So that's just really incredible. And I'm just so proud of everyone in the community. And oh, Kira has joined us. Привет, госпожа. Um, yeah, I mean, we've got him. We're getting ready to like enter phase 2, as we call it, which sounds way more dramatic than it is. It's basically just we're doing a lot of cool stuff. Is there anything like in phase 2 that you all want to talk about that you're feeling particularly excited about that you want to discuss? At all? By the way, you should have a setting you can like hit the space bar and unmute yourself.
I would like to bring attention to the anonymous ask thing we're doing with the website.
Oh, it's gonna be so cool. Yeah, and like it's out there, so it's about time to start like really scoping through those questions and posting them. Um, I'm very excited about that one, if only because it's going to move some of the learning and some of the conversations outside of that little silo we have there. Like 10,000 people is a pretty big silo, but I want more, you know? So I feel good about that, like especially provoking conversations elsewhere. I don't know.
I'm excited. Well, is this something that we're allowed to talk about? The thing on
You're asking me on
the
a
thing
live
on the
show.
website
Which thing on the website?
that people are contributing to.
Are we talking about? There are so many things that people are contributing to. You got to give me more.
Oh gosh. Oh, I should have thought about this more.
You should have, and now I'm on the spot.
Now you're on the spot.
You can write
the
it on a
thing
piece
that
of paper.
People are going to contribute to that's a bit like Wikipedia sort of thing.
Oh, are we talking about the dictionary? Or
Yeah.
the archive?
Yeah, the dictionary.
Oh, yeah, the dictionary. It's I put it in the announcement. Did you read your wife's announcements?
I'm sure I read the announcement along with every other thing.
Yeah, no, the dictionary I'm very excited about, and I've been working really hard on it, and unfortunately it's just not something I'm going to get finished before my surgery in 4 days.
But who's counting?
But who's counting, right? But I actually am really super excited about the dictionary because I think for the first time we're going to have like a model for what it looks like to sort of gather the conversation around a word rather than just like try to prescribe a definition to it. And I'm very, very excited for what that looks like because there are a lot of words where it's like who can use it, and who like what's it going to say when you use it, right? That those words are sort of problematic, or you know, like the word I mean, I'll use one that refers to me, right? Like the word transsexual. You know, I can call myself that, but other people should not call me that. And unless I ask them to. And I would call that like a yellow light word. You know, like, hey, you just need to be careful with this one. And I think that's really useful to be able to separate language into like hey, this language has some real problems and you need to be aware of them, versus just, you can't use that. You know?
And so many folks learn by educating, and it kind
Mm.
of makes that education more of like a cycle
Mhm.
rather than one person teaching everyone. It's more collaborative.
I agree. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to introduce ourselves.
No.
We're awful at this. We're so bad at this. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get better. You have to be bad at something to get good at it. That's according to my affirmations app. So we should probably just, do you want to just round robin? Do we want to just like, how do we want to do this?
This is like
Sounds
my
good.
this is like my hell loop. Everyone, go around, introduce yourselves,
You know what?
say
You
something
know-
interesting.
You know what? Robbie's the straight man. Why don't you go first, Robbie?
I thought you'd never ask, so I was just about to take the space, as
Oh,
I
good.
do.
Thank you. I mean, really, if men didn't just take the space, they would never be given any.
Of course. Of course.
I love you, Robbie.
So I'm Robbie. I'm the token straight person. Uh, I'm so straight. I'm currently sitting in a car, and I'm super happy to be here. I take he, him pronouns.
Let's just, we'll work. Let's see here. We'll just randomize this. I'm just going to pick people. I'm going to pick from the class. Kirsty.
Me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kirsty, or Key. That's how it's pronounced. A lot of people say it on the Discord. I am one of the Discord deputies, and I take she, they pronouns.
All right. Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna. She, her pronouns. I'm one of the I guess you can almost say OG admins of this group.
So,
You know, trans woman, ace, lesbian. Not sure what else to
And-
say.
I mean, if I were going to tell people about you, I would talk about the amazing pixie woman that goes to every possible Ren Fest. I think you're the butterfly wings you have, like, every time. I love them.
Those are dragon wings, I'll have you know. That's the dragon
I am
style.
so sorry.
I'm a fairy with dragon wings.
Duly noted. I am not part. I'm not with it. I'm not with what the kids are doing today.
And I don't think
So-
you've probably ever seen a close-up of the wings anyway, so...
I think you sent me a link one time long ago.
Maybe.
I think that leaves you, Steph. Quick, be
Hello.
interesting.
Oh, hi, I'm Steph.
No pressure.
I don't take pronouns because I'm like that. And I'm one of the admins in the Facebook group. I am gender fluid and non-binary, and I love dumplings.
Oh, now I
Oh.
want some soup dumplings so badly. Why would you do that to us?
Xiaolong bao.
Yes, that word I'm not going to try to say on a microphone that I'm recording. I know better. I'll practice that before I get that brave.
I just realized, though, that, like, you know, Steph, you were so concerned about your introduction, and I like, barely introduced myself, so you did a great job.
Yeah, well
Oh.
done. And the dumplings
Yeah.
thing was really a good add-on. That's very important.
Really
Didn't
important
even-
information.
I mean, really, honestly, the trans to dumpling
Yeah.
ratio, like the overlap there, the correlation does need to be recorded. We need to be talking more about this.
Definitely. And
Dumplings
they are
cause trans
both
people.
equally important parts of
But where
myself.
do-
So
Where do metagender people like myself
I think
lie?
metagender people are caused by hummus.
That makes sense.
that's
Yeah.
a very controversial opinion.
It's very controversial.
I mean, I would say in general, the whole group and the whole thing that we're in, our little silo is like 60% education, 40% food.
It's
Mhm.
so true. I suppose I should actually say who I am.
Nah.
I just made the space. It's fine. Okay, I'm Evie Winters. I am the founder of WLMN, which is fun to say. It's a really fun acronym to say. Um, and I guess since I'm the original creator, that makes me the WLMNOP. Um,
CEO.
no, original poster.
Oh, right, I got you.
I'm hilarious. Anyway, that's one thing you should know about me. Biographical information is I'm funny. It's the trauma. Um,
Do we want to say what WLMN stands for?
yes, absolutely. It stands for the Wanna Learn More Network, which is a collection of groups, services, media, elsewhere, public speaking events, you name it, all aimed with the singular goal of educating about marginalized voices by marginalized voices. The whole point is to do the labor and the work, but in a compassionate way, and to bring people closer together, not to emphasize our divides.
That was an amazing explanation.
Thank you, because I just made it up on the spot. I mean, I have one written, but that is not what I wrote. And now I'm glad that I have a recording of this, because that was pretty good. So anyway, so I'm the original founder of this network of groups, even though technically Joanna has been doing this job longer than me. So Joanna and I met in a previous iteration of the group, of the network. Sorry, we've upgraded.
This group's a lot better than the old one.
Yeah, I mean, hey, curse of success, right? Like, the other group had some stuff to work out for the size it was. And
Yep.
Let's see here. What else do we want to go over? Oh, yeah, about me. I am known for my hot takes, which is because I don't stop eating hot sauce. I am a transgender woman. I also use the term transsexual for myself. I do not consider them to be synonymous. I use them separately. So I will say I am transgender and transsexual. And let's see, I've had bottom surgery in April, which is why we're recording so late. Because I've been healing and tech problems. And I have my final big milestone in my transition in 4 days. They're going to be doing facial feminization surgery for me, as well as breast augmentation and a revision to my bottom surgery. So bottom surgery just is a stand-in for vaginoplasty for anybody who's listening to this later. Probably this will get published. Hopefully this will get published right about the time I'm like going under the knife. So that's going to be weird to wake up to. Yeah, so do we want to just like pick a topic off of our list and just like move on, or we've got ourselves a little list here. We've got we can talk about digital dead naming. That just came up in my life. As well as digital safety and trans kids. So I think those two really go like hand in hand. Do y'all want to talk about that?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's do that. Let's do it.
Like, I have this issue all the time because I live in a country where your ID number is gendered. So at any time I go to the hospital or I show papers for work or whatever, my assigned gender at birth is clearly visible.
I know you're from Sweden, but like, can you like give an example of like how that works without giving out your ID number, please?
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, you're born in '92 and on the 2nd of November. So your number would be like 921102. Okay. So that's year, month, and day. And then you have 4 control numbers, of which the third will be even or odd to, announce your gender assigned at birth. And you can get this legally rectified, but it takes going through your transition through medical processes and also getting like like a legal stamp to okay this and rectify it.
That's wild. I hadn't considered that. Like here in the States, there's just an M or an F on your ID, and it literally took me 20 minutes to change. I didn't even
Yeah.
need court documentation. That's
So
wild
that's
to me.
crazy. Yeah.
So no matter what, that's carried with you forever?
Yeah, I mean, unless you get this like legal process done, but that has to be precursored by, medical transition and, getting that. Basically, they want to be secure in the fact that you are actually trans. And then it's sent off to like a council of judges that has to decide if this is real, even after years of, going through the medical system.
There's definitely something to be said there about like the amount of our identities that have to be processed legally. Um, like even here in Maryland, which is pretty forgiving. Like I still had to go and deal with judges and legal processes and lawyers to get my name changed, to get to get like an official change to my gender marker on my things like social security card, things like that. It's just it's really humiliating if I can be honest. It's a lot of work to just get somebody to say like, yeah, okay, you're you.
Yeah, I'm really not looking forward to when I start transitioning, having to fight all that legal stuff to change my name. You
Yeah.
know, Minnesota, I think, makes it relatively easy for licenses and everything compared to some states. I am almost scared to see what my home state, which is an extremely backward state, requires for like changing my birth certificate.
Mm-hmm. What's the situation like in
May
this?
I ask you all like what's the um what is the range of information available on these kinds of things? Like if you search the internet, could you very easily find this out about a person that they have changed their gender marker, or how is that for you? Because for me,
Mm-hmm.
my personal ID number it's out there for the world to see, just like by one Googling.
So here in the States, it depends on, you can have those records sealed so that, and like, but it's surprisingly easy to do. As long as you know, if you know a person's dead name by any chance, you can definitely find the court documentation here. So anybody who knew my dead name could definitely find the court documentation about my name change and to see what it changed to.
It's really dangerous in so many ways.
Yeah, especially in the United States where like there's doxing is a real problem anywhere, but there's just such a glut of personal information you can find out about almost anybody here. And it really sucks to have that be publicly available.
Yeah.
But to have to do all that like proving process and then to just like still for people to be able to find that.
And I mean here in the States it's pretty common that you have to like put your name in the newspaper. Your name change has to be published, and then it has to be in there. It has to run twice in my state. It has to run twice in the paper. And then you have to it has to run twice, and then you have to wait a month. And anybody who wants to file a complaint or a challenge to your name change is allowed to do it during that 30-day period.
What reasons are acceptable for challenging that?
So they can really challenge for any reason at all.
Wow.
They can just say they think you're doing it to be abusive to someone or whatever. The ostensible reason for that to exist is because of debt. It's so that your debtors can say, I think this person is trying to change their name to avoid paying me.
Right. Yes.
And so it's like a warning period where they can, but nobody reads the paper, so. That's sort of the saving grace is that it's such an antiquated system that nobody really does it.
I'm sorry. So just in general, pretty much anyone could just like tried to appeal your name change then? Just a stranger.
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably get tossed out, but they would still, like, anybody, it's one of those things where they could make your life a hell by filing appeals, because if they file appeals, there has to be a court date to navigate it. So your name change gets delayed no matter what, whether it's a good appeal or a bad one.
Am I correct in thinking that I have a feeling I remember someone telling me, this is very anecdotal, I don't know if anyone can confirm this, but someone told me about these people who go, like, they go out, they set out to read this paper and cause as many trans people problems as possible with their name changes. Is that something that you've heard about?
So when you're talking about like Kiwi Farms and places like that, yeah, there are people that do that kind of thing. There are people that do nothing but try to like look up the documentation on a trans person to publicly out them. You know, as sort of like a sort of blackmail, like, hey, we know about your before times. That comes up, yeah.
What a profession.
I mean, they don't do it professionally. They just...
Oh, just for fun.
They're just... Yep. It's a lot of the people you would expect it to be. It's one of the few topics that your incels and your TERFs can agree on.
What an intersection.
Yeah, I gotta say, I didn't expect to see J.K. Rowling siding with the Tories, but here we are. What a strange world. I guess that probably brings us into the conversation about digital safety, though, doesn't it? Especially with trans kids. Because, like we were just saying earlier, we have such a big, big group. And I think, and I don't know where this idea of online safe spaces came from, historically, but those don't exist.
I think it's just like conversations about privacy, you know.
Yeah.
People just like to feel things to make themselves feel better.
Like, there's no such thing as, like, even if you have, like, an encrypted conversation, you're still relying on the other people involved to not use the tools at their disposal to share that conversation, to render the encryption mute, or moot, right? Like, there's no point in encryption when somebody can screenshot everything, right? It only takes one person, and, you know, just to demonstrate a point, like, we, in our group, we don't allow people to out their children. If they're posting about children, we make them post anonymously, and this is why. We had one member who was getting really irate with us and kept trying to, like, repost things and was getting upset about having comments deleted, outing her kids. And I messaged this person, and I, during the course of our conversation, she sort of pushed me a little bit, and I was like, I'm going to prove to you how risky this thing you just did is. And I literally started my stopwatch, and in 13 minutes, I knew where her kids went to school, what their hobbies were, where they lived. I knew what social clubs she attended. I knew who they were related to, and I knew what those people that... I knew what the hobbies were of the people that she was related to.
I remember that.
Like social groups and places they like to hang out, like fraternal organizations or charities. It took me 13 minutes. And I wasn't even trying that hard. I was just on my phone.
Yeah, it's not just parents either. It's like we get it with teachers as well. That's another common one. Like teachers who have trans kids in their classes, or just like, you know, they support a lot of trans kids, and they'll talk at length in detail about them. And I'll literally Google the name of the member, and immediately comes up with their LinkedIn and shows what school they work at and what classes they teach. And it's just so easy for someone to use that information to do a child harm.
Entirely.
I do think there's a lot...
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Robbie.
No, I just wanted to just like also say that this isn't to sort of scare people away from speaking about their children or their students or whatever. Just it's a fact of being mindful when you do. You can say,
Yeah.
I have a person, I met a person who has this and this issue. It's just a question of being safe and keeping everyone safe, really.
Or even just reference like the hypothetical child. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
say there's a hypothetical student who has a problem sort of like this. Even that can be enough to deter interested folks.
Well, and what Robbie is saying kind of leads into what I was going to say about how a lot of the time, too, I know all in all it sucks, but a lot of the time, people don't even realize that they're outing
Yes.
these
Yes.
children, and that's a really good thing to educate on. Because in their minds, a lot of the time, they're trying to build connections with people. And kind of like say these things to say, hey, I'm a supportive person, not necessarily to get ally cookies, but like to just in a supportive way. So that's why if we wanted to maybe take some time to talk about like some examples of maybe
Yeah, let me put this
what
in
that
order.
looked like, because I do think a lot of the time people don't even understand, and that might be another reason why they get so angry, because they
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, one, there's like this problem that happens with, I find that parents of trans kids are in a rock and a hard place situation between am I hiding my child or am I outing them? And it, boy, do a lot of parents really cross that threshold into like tokenizing their child, to sort of take on the identity, I am the parent of a trans kid. Um, but I was just thinking about like how many we get that are like, they want to participate in the conversation as a parent. They really want to have that like privilege to be like like the seat at the table, as it were, as is this parent of a trans child. And oof, that gets dangerous. And the other thing is like it really violates one of our sort of core principles of transness, which is that like it's the trans person's right to decide who knows about that.
I think especially with children as well, it's so, I mean, I know some parents, you know, they've sometimes we'll get responses from parents like, oh, well, like my kid was just sitting next to me and I asked them and they were like, yeah, sure. But in reality, you just, especially cis people, I think, don't, they don't have this like radar for like what is and isn't a safe situation to give that information out, and the implications of saying that information in a group like ours. Like, I don't think people realize sometimes like how when we let people in, it's literally based on 3 questions, like 3 answers to a
That's all we
question.
get.
And I mean that's the only choice we have. That's the way that it works. That's the tools that Facebook gives us. But that's it. We kind of have to trust that people who are coming into the group have good intentions and read as much into those 3 answers as we can. But you know, it's a risk. It is a risk that we will encounter people who don't have good intentions who enter the group and who will screenshot things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we do our best on that. And the other thing that's really important to remember about that as well is in Facebook groups especially, but in any sort of like written media, the history stays there. And we've had it happen as admins of that space so that people will join, and they'll participate for months and months and months and months. They'll have a history in our group. And then what'll happen is someone from their town or their school or their work will join. And they might not be out there.
Yeah.
And that turns in, it's a real risk. People need to be very careful. Because there's only, like, we just can't track 10,000 people's history.
And it's quite a small world on Facebook as well.
Surprisingly
Like,
small
connections. It's just so easy to run into somebody in a group that you know already in real
Yeah.
life.
Well, the algorithms
Yes.
sometimes make that a little easier.
They help.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then the other thing is like, you know, trans people should really get to speak for themselves. We sort of draw the line at kids, where we're going to be enforcing it. But there are some times we get questions from folks who are asking like a question about someone in their love life, or a friend who's nearby, or something sort of similar, and it's like, you know, this person really has the right to know how much is being made public about them. You know, it's so frustrating. I see Erin is saying in the chat that this is why she doesn't really participate in the Facebook group. And Erin, I don't particularly blame you. Posting as a trans person on Facebook anywhere at all is an act of bravery, especially if you're not out. Gosh, I mean, I was really careful about that when I was early in my transition. I had separate lists on my profile of people who could see my posts that were related to me being trans at all. There was, I took a lot of precautions, and even then I couldn't control everything. Like one person could have.
I still, up until recently, was having like a select audience of people until I finally was just like, you know what? I'm completely out at work. I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm just going to write this year, and then if you want to leave, you're welcome to. If you want to stay, here's some education.
Here's some stuff. So like making this educational for people though, now that we've done all the boogeyman stuff, like how can we make this actionable for cis folks who are listening? Like what tips will we give them for referring to trans people or talking about trans people?
I think it's like if it's concerning an adult, then I mean, I know some situations you really can't ask the person directly, like say if you're worried about someone and you just can't approach them about it for whatever reason. But ideally that is the first thing, really, like to go to the person that you want to talk about and be like, hey, I want to post about this in this group, and give them full, you know, informed consent, the opportunity to do that. Because I would just be absolutely horrified if somebody that I had let into that part of my life did something like that to me and I found out secondhand, or I just didn't find out at all. That I mean, yeah, it's but then with kids, obviously that's different. You can't, this is something that we're trying to teach people, is that you can't ask a minor and have them give you permission, like as especially like parents and stuff. It's kind of on the parent to keep their kids safe.
Yeah, and I want to add on to that though, that there are ways to freely discuss your child who is trans online without putting them or you at risk. And one of those is like our Discord server, which is totally pseudonymous. Like, you can take whatever name you want there, and as long as nothing about your username is identifiable to you, then nobody else needs to know who you are, and they're not going to be able to track you down or find out what you said, you know?
I mean, sorry, the other thing that's super easy to do is just say, I have a friend who has a kid who, etc., etc. Like asking for a friend, it's classic, I know, but it takes the heat away from you, even if it's, I mean, it can be ambiguous whether it's true or not, but it doesn't put a target on you.
Not in the same way at all. Like, something about like, oh, I have a friend, like really does. Like, people just don't care enough to like do that work into you on, because like there's no guarantee of a payoff. Whereas if you say, I have a trans child, there is a guaranteed payoff. Like, they can look you up, and if they do a good enough job, they can find your kid. And
I mean, not to mention that everything. Okay, so everything doesn't even come out right in writing and typing, and we all know that's a limited media. And you know, saying that I have a friend or I met a person who this and that. It's pretty much equally informative to what kind of answers you will get when discussing in an online forum. If you say, okay, so I have a person who I did this to them, and how do you think they feel? It's like, okay, so there's only one Robbie, there's only one Evie, there's only one Steph. We cannot answer for one single person, so it doesn't really matter that this is your particular person, you know?
So true. Yeah, so true.
Okay, do we have anything else on like this particular topic that we want to go over before we like move on? Because we're about an hour and 8 minutes into this thing, but also close to an hour through our recording time. So
Let's keep rolling, I say.
yeah, do you all want to button this one up? Do you have anything you want to like tack on that you feel like we needed to say?
What happened to our ASMR?
Oh yeah.
She muted.
I mute it because, listen, me doing my inhaler is not sexy. Nobody's getting the chills from that. If you want the chills, like, we got to do like, here I've got some paper here. I can just do like,
Yeah,
there you go. Now you can have the chills.
That's the content people want.
Yeah, that was my bill for the surgery, by the way.
Expensive ASMR.
It's the most expensive ASMR ever. That feels really meta, though. Like, not meta gender, just like,
Just
but like,
meta.
yeah, that's actually the bill for my surgery, though. Which I'm glad I have the insurance. I do. Yeah. So, I mean, do we want to talk about surgery stuff? I mean, there are a lot of questions in the air about like vocal training and surgery, and just sort of like a lot. We can also just look at the topics list. I mean, we can also, real quick, if we want to dip into talking about the UK, we can do that. I don't think there's too awful much to say on it other than what has changed and what's happening. I don't know.
A brief rundown would be great because I haven't seen too much about it.
So, last year there was a very like, very publicized. It was very popular with the TERF crowd, especially. By the way, when I'm saying TERF, what that means is trans exclusionary radical feminists. They are a right-wing aligned branch of feminism. And that's being very loose with the word feminism in general. But they would say they are. I say that organizationally speaking, they're about as feminist as Nazis were socialist, which is to say not at all, even a little. So, they use the word. That is what they say for themselves. But, where was I? I had a place I was going with that. Give me a second.
The UK.
Oh, right, yes, the UK, thank you. I have ADHD, too. Yes, so with the UK, there was a big court case, and during that court case, they basically said that people who are under 16 years old were not capable of consenting to puberty blockers or hormone response therapy. And that was a very big decision. It made a huge impact. And this week, a couple days ago, I'm not sure exactly when the decision was handed down. Yesterday, time zones are weird. That decision was overturned by an appellate court in the UK. So what that means is that, currently speaking, clinics in the UK will be able to continue offering their services to children until something more finalized happens, which I believe the next step in the UK, and Steph, you can tell me if this is true, is the Supreme Court y'all have. Y'all have a Supreme Court, right?
Oh man, I don't know if I can tell you, to be honest. I have to. I was saying this earlier before we started recording, that honestly, I don't know whether really many people in the UK, like your average pleb, really quite understands the justice system much.
Same here.
So yeah, I don't want to guess. Let me say that. And get it wrong.
That's fair. I believe I read that the next stop is whatever your equivalent is of a Supreme Court. That this was the appeals court. And it would make sense that there's a Supreme Court there, like
Hmm.
a final actor, a final decider. I'm just not sure if you have a different word for that.
Oh, I
Um,
think, yeah, I think it is the Supreme Court. I think so.
okay. Because I know our systems are all modeled on yours, but it's like, how can we take this thing but make it better? But it didn't really make it better.
No.
Well, it didn't make it necessarily worse either. Um,
So
yeah.
naturally, it's okay.
So yeah.
I mean, I think the main way we made it better on this side of the pond is we got rid of all the wigs.
We still had
You know how
wigs to begin
It's
with.
the only
the lawyers and judges over there, they wear those big white wigs.
That sounds atrocious.
Have
We
you-
should
have
all
you
start
seen-
wearing
have you-
them.
Have you seen them?
I have seen them historically.
Yeah,
didn't know
we
they still did
use
that,
them.
though.
Yeah, we
I
still
didn't know
use
that
them.
either.
They are ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. That says so much about UK culture, though. Robbie, do they have
Doesn't
those
it
in
just?
Sweden? Do they have the big wigs?
No, we do not have the big wigs, but I can tell you that we're very happy in Sweden about this turnout because when this decision was made last year, they actually stopped prescribing puberty blockers to people under 16 here as well.
That's ridiculous.
And yeah, in reference to the UK. So we are hoping for that to commence again, and we are very happy for our UK siblings.
I don't think I have anything else to offer on this. I'm my knowledge of the political systems of the UK. I mean, like, yes, I have a political science degree, but also the UK wasn't my primary focus, so it's sort of sophomoric. And
I mean, I guess one thing to just drive home is that there is one single gender clinic for children in the whole of the UK. And yeah, this case has basically blocked everyone, all of those kids who need that service, out from that, which is why this is such good news.
in that case, it's called Tavistock, right? Or that
Yeah,
court?
yeah.
Is that how you say it? Tavistock or Tavistock?
Yeah, Tavistock, yeah.
Tavistock. I'm good on this topic. I feel like we have covered the topic
Yep.
as well as we are gonna do here today. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to it? I'm just gonna put these in order so that when we're doing the show
Cannot hear
notes-
you, Evie.
Can you not
Yeah,
hear me?
I thought that was my computer
hear me?
glitching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There we
every
go.
now and then it's cutting out.
It's probably because I'm moving too far away. Oops. This thing is like really touchy. And it's like a $300 microphone, but I mean, you gotta have technique to use it. It's not a Tesla. This thing
probably-
doesn't work automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm good on the topic. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
Nope.
No.
All right. So we had one question here. I feel like we can sort of go over pretty quickly. It was about voice training, and I mean, I'm just gonna try and read it out. Mostly, it's kind of a long question. So basically, what happened was I shared a video in our Discord server that contained audio of what I used to sound like. And I did it on purpose. That wasn't me just like making an accident. It was intentional because I wanted people to sort of know what I was starting with originally. And so this person is asking like, hey, we have probably similar original voices. And they sort of wanted to know, let's see here. Just wondering if Evie could take some time during the podcast to explain how she applied Zaya's, I think you say Zaya, I think that's how you say this person's name. She's lovely. Real great person. How to apply Zaya's teachings. Zaya runs a YouTube channel, which I love, called Trans Voice Lessons. It's a very good channel. I think if you are, it's basically required reading if you're sort of like handling your own voice transition. And you're trans feminine. Really important. I don't know if Zaya's teaching at all is useful for trans masculine folk.
Well, also, if the trans mass person is like on testosterone as well.
Mhm.
There's like things that happen naturally to the voice, anyways.
Yeah, there'll be a certain amount that happens naturally, but there's stuff that happens with cadence. And
Yeah.
the way that we speak, that like there's a more effeminate, air quotes here. There's a style of speaking that is read as more effeminate, and
Yeah.
then there's a style of speaking that is more that is read more like, and this is true of like walking, standing, all of it. Like everything has a different read.
No, that's true. I just wanted to mention
Mhm.
the thing about how like estrogen doesn't affect that, but
It does not.
Mhm.
Yeah, so any other tips picked up putting this into daily practice? So this person is asking about something I hear a lot, which is like, oh, I know what I need to do. I just like, how do you make that into a routine? And I don't have good tips for you. There's a voice exercise where you intentionally cause your, oh gosh, what is this called? Is it the larynx?
Larynx.
Larynx to raise. You intentionally cause that to happen, and it's basically like, I'm trying to remember how to like make it happen. So when you swallow, your larynx will naturally raise. And basically what you're going to do is like when you're at a grocery store, really anytime you can, you're going to make that swallowing motion and your larynx will raise and you're going to hold it instead of letting it come back down. And by doing that, you are overtraining the muscles that pull it up. And the consequence is that it will not go back down. You are overtraining those muscles. And as long as you keep doing that practice, you will not overdo it. Like, I mean, you will overdo it. That's the point. You want to overdo it.
That's very interesting. I've never actually heard about it in detail before. And it's particularly interesting to me because I've had a bit of, I sing, and I've had a bit of, vocal training and know a bit about vocal cords and all that sort of stuff. Is it?
Same,
I
same,
want to
same.
ask. I want to ask: is it painful to do that?
It feels a little uncomfortable at first. It feels a little, honestly, you know what? It doesn't hurt, but it does feel, it feels a little scary. It feels like you're choking a little bit.
I see.
And so it sort of triggers that sort of internal anxiety. Like, oh my God, I'm choking. But you're doing it to yourself. But like if you go and put your hand on your own throat, you don't get that choking sensation. You don't get that feeling like, oh my God, I'm choking, this is out of my control. But if you're doing it like that, it feels weird. And it really does trigger that sense of like something is wrong. And you sort of just have to power through that. And I think that's part of why people have problems turning that into a habit. Because it is uncomfortable in that way.
You have to physically put yourself in that position.
Well, and you can't breathe while you're doing it. You're holding your breath.
Yeah.
And so I found it helpful, like when I was running errands, to do that when I was driving. I would do it like if I was at a stoplight. Don't hold your breath while you're operating a moving car. I feel like I have to say these things. But like stoplights, waiting in line at the grocery store, it's not like I was talking to anybody anyway, because I was starting to like be visibly feminine in my appearance, and my voice was a big giveaway that something was going on there. So I wasn't talking to people if I didn't need to. I'm trying to think. The other one is, and I tend to do it almost every morning, is sort of like getting your voice up and forward. And the way you can do that is with like a sound, like a heat, like that sound right there is sort of like where you want to be in terms of the sensations that you're feeling while you speak. So, a lot of times, like, Kirsty has woken up with me and I'll be walking around the apartment going like, heat from fire, fire from heat, heat from fire, fire from heat, like on repeat. And that's me doing sort of a warm-up to sort of like get my voice where it needs to be for the remainder of the day.
Could I ask a question where
Yeah.
I was wondering how volume factors into this. Is it difficult for you to sort of keep a steady normal volume, speaking volume while doing this, or how do you feel about that?
So here's the thing. I struggle to get loud. Like, I can get pretty loud, but I can't get, like, loud.
It's true.
You know, like, I'm not gonna yell, a lot in this voice. Like, because it has to come, like, forward, and I had to back up off the mic, or I was gonna, like, cause a problem.
Like your version of yelling is
Yeah.
a
Like,
lot quieter.
yeah, like, my yell is not gonna be as loud. Before, with, like, I had that, like, if you have ever heard my father speak, you would hear this, but my father has, like, a very deep chest voice. Like, that man can get some volume, and I inherited that. I actually had a very deep speaking voice, and my yelling voice was like drill sergeant. I could get some volume before, and I've given that up because there's really no way for me to get that loud. Right now, I could train. If I wanted to go hire a voice coach, I know I could get there. But I just, like, I don't care, and I don't like raising my voice anyway. So, yeah.
Whenever you have to pretend yell, you can tell that you really aren't liking it. It's really not a fun time.
Yeah, I don't even like raising my volume at all. I prefer to just sort of go with it, you know? But yeah, those are the two things that I really reliably do every single day. The other one is to I'm trying to think about how to put this one together. So there's an amount of your voice that's going to happen here in your throat, but when you're speaking, like, you're pushing air out, right? It's like sinking, but awful. And so what you want to do is, like, bring that sensation, that vibration that you're feeling. You want to bring that a little higher, and it's like right behind the nose. They say finding, like, your nose voice, but then you're gonna, like, it'll sound too nasally if you're just doing that alone. So you also have to bring it forward. And I don't know how to describe how to do that other than just, like, play around, and you'll know. You'll know when you're feeling it forward, like from the front of the mouth and behind the nose.
Steph, I don't know if you're thinking a lot about head voice right
I
now,
am
like
very
I am.
much.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm thinking about so there's this exercise where it's just humming on a 5-note scale. But when you're doing it correctly, you can actually feel it buzzing in that area of your face that Evie described. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about when I'm hearing this.
Yeah, I mean, it took me. And the other thing is, I think a lot of trans women, when they're doing voice training exercises, are actually really afraid of coming off as, like, childish or hyper feminine or squeaky. And the answer to that is you are going to. You are not going to nail it in one. You are not going to, like, nail these exercises. You're not going to make it perfect. You're going to overcompensate, and then you're going to bring it back. And I actually recommend doing that. Like, yes, it's going to out you. Yes, you're going to sound kind of odd. But for a while, I was really squeaky when I spoke. I was really high pitched. And Kira's in the chat and had to put up with me during that time. And for a while, it was very obvious what I was doing. I sounded like somebody who was, like, intentionally raising pitch and being intentionally squeaky. And then I started to, like, bring it back. I started to settle into what sounded good to me and to other people, where I was getting, like, the result that I wanted from people without it being overdone, you know? So, yeah, I mean, that's just, like, it's a lot of trans women, I think, are very dysphoria avoidant for a reason. Dysphoria sucks. And the consequence is they're not really willing to play around with voice, or because for fear of overdoing it, for fear of coming off as, like, stereotypically pitchy, or falsetto, worse, right? And I don't know how to, like, train your voice without going through that. I just don't think, I don't know how you're gonna nail it in one, especially without a vocal coach. So,
Well, singers don't nail it in one either. So everything takes practice.
exactly.
It's not always fun.
And I
It's
want
not
to
linear
say
either.
like, I'm sorry. I want to say like, as a trans man, this applies to everyone who is changing their voice. My voice was not always this deep, and it took some time, and it was grueling, I'm sure, to everyone around me. Um, so this is just how it goes, and I want it just as I'm classically trained in an amount of skills, and my favorite tip for any kind of practicing is do it while you do something else, and that way it becomes routine. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
you do your voice practice every day when you take a shower. That
Mm-hmm.
way it will fall naturally to you.
And
Great tip.
that part right there. The other thing is you can do like a triggering event. Um, Triggering events really help us to learn new behaviors. A lot of times people really struggle with making time to practice or remembering to do it. Um, there was a marketing campaign back in the, God, I want to think the 20s for toothpaste. Y'all didn't know, like, I don't know when it was, but they, basically what they did was they started trying to market toothpaste, and they said the way they got people to use toothpaste was to say, if you feel a film on your teeth, it's time to brush them. And so people would do that thing where they would run their tongue on their teeth, and if they felt a film on their teeth, they would go brush their teeth. And that if this, then that is really helpful in forming a new behavior. So for me, my ifs were like, am I in line at the grocery store? Is this a red light? Then it's time to do the thing. It's like,
Also, how many of us just ran their tongue across your teeth just now? Just
Yeah.
me?
All of us.
For what
Okay.
it's worth, if you
Okay,
follow
just
that, if you
making
do
sure.
the tooth thing, you will overbrush your teeth and damage them. So don't do that.
I was just wondering for science. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, if you do that and you follow that advice, you will overbrush your teeth. So, and you will damage the enamel. So don't do it.
So don't do.
Yeah.
But they needed that in the 20s.
Well, they didn't really need that. They didn't understand the consequences of it. More like
Yeah.
they wanted people to buy toothpaste. That's what they wanted. And that came from there was a okay history time. There was some sort of process. I can't remember what on earth it was that produced a lot of extra fluoride in manufacturing, like a lot of fluoride. And businesses literally just didn't know what to do with all this fluoride they were producing. And they did what you do. They hired think tanks and the like. They hired people who were very smart to find uses for this fluoride so that they could sell that too. And they found out it was good for teeth. They found, if I recall correctly, they found some naturally occurring streams that had high fluoride, and the people there had really good teeth. So they just sort of took a guess that fluoride was helping them with their teeth. And the consequence was they were like, we're going to make toothpaste out of it. And so then they had fluoride toothpaste. Yep. So basically, they did this to get you to buy it. They had no idea what it was going to do.
The same sort of thing happened with mouthwash, actually.
I love that. That's
Marketing
like,
thing.
okay, so we have factory waste. Let's Mad Men it.
That's also how you got gasoline. Gasoline comes from the same thing.
Isn't that also, like Oh, wait. Did you say gasoline or Vaseline?
No, gasoline.
Because I think Vaseline came from the same thing as well.
It is a
It's just
petroleum
petroleum
byproduct,
jelly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things came out of an attempt, like chewing gum. I love chewing gum. Chewing gum was an attempt to replicate rubber originally, and it couldn't do the thing. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it's just a byproduct of some other process that mattered at some time, and now the byproduct is more important than the original. I can't remember what they were making that they had all this extra fluoride. But anyway, I think it was.
This is, I'm sorry, this is super interesting because we've just recently had a discussion in the Modmin team about what is innovation.
Yeah. That was a really odd one. That was really odd. Yeah, I'm still not sure what to make of the original discussion.
I think I missed this.
Sorry, Evie?
I said I think I
But
missed
this is
it.
innovation.
You missed the innovation.
I missed the innovation. I was off innovating.
Yeah.
Just differently than you plebes.
I think, yeah, basically we got a pending question to the group. Are we allowed to talk about those, even though they're
Yeah,
not
we can talk about
published?
pending questions as long as we don't out anybody.
Yeah, so we got a pending question that was like, what was it? I don't know if Robbie, you remember it better than me.
Was
I'm
it
terrible at remembering these things.
like how do trans people feel that they are limited from partaking in innovation? And we
Oh,
were very
yeah.
confused as to
Uh,
what do you mean by
what that
innovation?
was. Yeah, because
Yeah.
innovation can be so many. It's such a vague word. It's like I don't know what parallel I can draw with another equally vague word, but like there's so many different types of innovation. Like working in the industrial design industry myself. I mean, I currently work in packaging design, and we've got specifically a word, innovation, that means a specific thing in packaging that is in our sector. And it's to do with like gamification of like multi-packs of drinks and new experiences, like
Yeah.
specifically those kinds of things. So, and there's so many different versions of innovation that you could be talking about, and I didn't particularly reach a result of what that meant.
Right.
But yeah, it was all I know that it's in a university context.
Interesting.
Not sure. Not sure.
Ocho
I think the answer so far was innovation. Any innovation that students and teachers could or would participate in. If this person who has posted this is listening, please do
Clarify.
get in touch with us in the comments, because we'd love to know more. We're still a bit confused.
Please more.
You mean to tell me that you want to learn more?
Yes,
about that
I want to learn more.
So God, that's an interesting question. I mean, a lot of what we do in the group is innovative.
Yeah.
A lot of times innovation in anything is this is why I think the liberal arts are such an important part of education, is really just taking something completely unrelated and somehow, square peg round hole, realizing that the square peg does fit and that it fits better somehow. Like we are repurposing every single day software in ways it was not meant to be repurposed. Even our Discord server is unique in terms of its design and operation amongst, like, I haven't seen another Discord server that operates like ours. The way we do our administration for the group, no other Facebook group that I'm aware of operates with anything like a structure like ours.
I feel kind of spoiled. Like I look at others
Yeah.
and like, oh,
Like we've tried and like we've built what we needed, and a lot of it just ended up being good for other people too. Or just like interesting ideas. Sometimes innovation means not knowing you can't do something too. And like, oh, well, I solved that math problem because I didn't know I couldn't. A lot of it's learned helplessness that stops people from even trying.
gotta get in that growth mindset.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the like whole point of really the want to learn more network, is that we want to learn more, like the Discord mods want to learn more. How can we make this space useful for you? Us admins want to learn more. How can we help other people? And we want to learn more from each other and from listeners and members in all ways. So that runs through all of it.
I thought I was cis a year ago.
Yeah, see?
You learned more.
But also, I mean, that really does bring up an interesting point that we run a learning group and not an education group. And that's a distinction that we leaned into very on purpose that you don't see elsewhere. we made an important distinction there, and I think that distinction is unique and innovative. I would like to see more learning groups and less education groups. I would like to see less groups where, one of the things I love about our space and spaces that sort of emulate ours is that the admin team is never afraid to say that they don't know something. There's never this, we're not college professors. We're not masters of all. We acknowledge our limitations. We see ourselves as facilitators. And the whole point is that we're all learning together. It's a collaborative exercise. And I think that's new in that way. Apparently, I've applied a lot of Montessori concepts in designing that. I've been informed.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So I've been told. I do well in the Montessori clubhouse chats. They like me there. So, do we want to move on to we've got about, I'm just looking here, it looks like you had about 45 minutes left before we're going to start buttoning up. Because we're trying not to run long, because half of our admin team exists on the other side of the planet.
This is the internet, not America.
I've heard tell of them. I'm still not convinced that all of the United States exists. For instance, Kansas is positively a lie. Nobody lives there. And anybody who claims to live there is paid by the government. And I think they're protecting something. Because, like, I've driven...
Conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. But, no, seriously, I remember we were on a road trip and we drove through there, and the only signs of human life were, telephone poles and roads for almost all of it. There was a road, and that road went endlessly. It was just a straight road.
One big field.
And there was just corn or wheat or whatever it was growing. I don't even remember because it's so traumatic. It's like the Twilight Zone. Like my mind has blocked this out. And I went to sleep because I was tired, because it was monotonous and terrible. I went to sleep and I woke up hours later and I did not realize we had gone to a new place. We were in a different location than we had been originally. I thought we just stayed put for 4 hours. So I'm thinking Kansas is basically what if Bermuda Triangle, but just right smack dab in the middle of the United States. And they pay people to say they are from there so that people don't disappear into it.
Wow.
You heard it here, folks.
You heard it here. This is going to be what our podcast is weird-ass conspiracy theories about nothing at all and trans stuff. So I hope you're enjoying your educational session.
Okay, how can I become one of these paid people that are supposed to be from Kansas? Because I would love some government money.
I'm not
nice
sure.
Side job.
The government. Yeah, let's go. Let's move on to a topic that is not a conspiracy theory about Kansas. I can feel the red dots appearing on the back of my head right now. Say more. Okay, cool. It looks like the last one that I have sort of queued up for us is trans surgeries and conversations about them. So, I mean, we obviously have a lot I can say on this subject at this point, given that our second largest group is just a group dedicated to discussing my surgeries. But there are more trans surgeries than just the ones I'm having. So I don't want to out anybody or ask any personal questions, but if any of you have any questions or things you want to discuss about trans surgeries at all, let's do it.
Or if you want to talk about everything having to do with the background scene on stuff, or people.
Oh yeah, what are support networks like in trans surgeries? That's good. It's a good little side topic. Do you want to put that in the Trello on your phone?
Okay.
Just so we don't miss it. I don't know. We've got a whopping one trans mask person in here currently, and I don't know what trans surgery is like in Sweden at all.
Well, it's a lot. We have a whopping number of 2.5 clinics that privately will do some surgery as far as top surgery, but generally we go through the national medical system through, and they will hire independent contractors, basically, to do
Okay.
surgeries.
That sounds
But
terrifying.
it is, and it takes, you first have to turn in some sort of, like, you have to turn in a paperwork for getting somebody to basically confirm that you are trans enough to go through surgery. That's what it takes,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's sort of a long legal process. But what I think I want to highlight right now is the fact that we need to start speaking about trans surgeries at all. We really don't do that, and
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of reasons why we don't really want to talk about it. Like, nobody does. We don't want to speak
Sorry.
about how something was wrong with us and we had to fix it.
Mm.
But we should normalize speaking about it, and I think that's that's innovation for you. How you have turned that group into something where you actually answer all kinds of questions, and I think it's really nice, and I hope to see that more, and that more people feel comfortable with asking questions and
Mm-hmm.
answering questions about it.
I think so too, and I think the sort of like weird irony here is that in the 80s everything was about these surgeries. Hormones were almost sort of an afterthought in a lot of ways, rhetorically speaking. 80s and early 90s that was the case, and then there started being this like push towards really rejecting the medical aspects of transition rhetorically, and um, I feel like we're just starting to sort of swing that pendulum back a little bit now. And I'm hoping it doesn't go the full way because, like, there's so much more to transition than medicine. So much more. And like, I've got so. The medical chapter in my book is big, but it's not as big as some of the others. There's a fourth part of transition that I have not named yet
To
publicly
anyone.
to anyone. Even my wife does not know what the section of this book says.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider it to be the most important part of a transition, regardless of medicine or any of that. But at the same time, like, if we're not talking about this medicine, then people will feel it is unimportant. And also, there are some real social stigmas around it. Even inside of our own community, like, I've gotten a lot of flack as a public speaker, as like a very like public trans woman, for having bottom surgery, for having it at all. Some of it came in the form of like a form of like radical body positivity, right? Like, oh, you should love the body you have. You shouldn't be trying to like change it, which is strange to me that we've sort of developed that culture of like don't change your body. Sometimes the rhetoric internally starts to mirror the rhetoric that is directed to us from TERFs. It just like wraps around to a form to like such a radical form of acceptance that they end up agreeing with TERFs. But yeah, like I don't. It's like where do you even begin talking about trans surgery and transness? And I think the thing that I was underprepared for were the non-medical aspects of it, where the scheduling, like yeah, everything's sort of like the epicenter of trans surgery is the surgery itself, but one of the greatest failures I think in trans care currently is that we are not adequately caring for people post-op. There's a lot that you have to reprocess and go through after you have one of these operations. It's a huge change in your body. there's not a very good debriefing process. There actually isn't one. I'm making one because I needed one. There's not a process to sort of like walk through dealing with the trauma of that surgery, reintegrating and re-understanding your body as it appears in public life. And, give you an example of something I'm sort of working through right now. My next surgery is on my face and my chest. These are very visible areas on any person. And, it's sort of like for personal reasons that I don't want to spend like 10, 15 minutes talking about, I do need to have a more prominent chest to sort of alleviate my dysphoria. So, if I'm more visible on me, it's not like I can just like go with a B cup and be happy with that. I needed to have more. And nobody's really talking about how I'm going to deal with the extra attention I'm getting from people when I walk my dog. I've already been through that once, but like when people started talking to me while I was out walking Misha, it was weird. It was real weird, especially when men started talking to me, and I didn't know how to process that. And this is going to be that, but even more because the sexualization is going to be turned up on me. People are going to be even less likely to listen to what I'm saying because of what is colloquially known as the bimbo effect. We're just not talking about that part. It's all medicine, medicine, medicine. What are they cutting? What are they removing? Where are they putting it? And they're not talking about the ways you're gonna like feel putting on a pair of leggings and not having to tuck. Things like that. I saw a video of it was a TikTok. It was made by a trans man, and I'm guessing he just had phalloplasty recently because the TikTok was about him learning to pee, and him like asking men how to handle like peeing standing up. And it was hilarious, but it's like this very joyous moment, but you could also tell it was a huge change in sort of how he was feeling about things. And well, there's really just no guideline on what you're going to feel on the other side of that, like what changes are likely to occur in your life as a consequence of altering your body that way. So I would love to see more talking on that. I don't know. Do we have anything that's... someone did have a specific question about the difference between penile inversion, which is, these are forms of vaginoplasty, penile inversion, and what I had, which is called a peritoneal pull-through. You right there?
I just added that.
Oh, okay. And so, like, the penile inversion surgery is exactly what it sounds like. Content warning for a second here. We're going to be talking about genitals and body parts and removing and cutting them. So, maybe pop out for a few minutes. Maybe you can just cut off here for a while if you're sensitive to those discussions. But they basically just take there's some really good animations of this on YouTube too. They basically repurpose like the glands and the urethra. They put all those things exactly where you would expect to find them on a cis vagina. And then they are going to take the skin and extra material from the testes, from the scrotum, from the shaft, and then they're going to repurpose that into the vaginal canal, and then they have like a little like dilator that they will actually wrap that around, and then they like stitch it all together, and they put like that sleeve inside as a vaginal canal, and then they sew it into place and they affix it. And then you let everything heal. So that's the penile inversion technique. Peritoneal pull-through is actually robotically assisted. I'm sure the original versions weren't. It's based on something called a Davidoff procedure, which was popularized for women who had, I think it's MRKH syndrome, which means it was popularized for cisgender women who actually just didn't have a vagina. They just weren't born with one. And, like, they had vulva, just no vagina. And basically what they do is they take the peritoneum, which is a lining of your intestines, that sort of keeps everything together. And they more or less just stretch it like you can a t-shirt. They more or less like take flaps, they call them, and pull them down into a hollow area that basically everybody has. There's a hollow, empty space, sort of like between the bowels and your bladder, and they pull them down between that, and they turn those into a column by stitching them together, and then they seal them shut so that there's no risk of like herniation. And then they attach that to a newly formed vaginal opening. Exciting stuff. Yeah. So I mean, that's the difference in medicine, but in reality, I think the difference is very high in healing time. Or not in the healing time total. I healed about on the right timeline.
I
But
remember you didn't think you would.
yeah, because I was doing so badly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like when a lot of women that I talk to, it because this surgery is new. I'm probably in the first like 200 trans women in the world to have had it.
Yeah.
And I sort of like had to like bully my doctor a little bit to get that. But I knew why I wanted it. But anyway,
Hey, Kirsty.
what you do is like, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, like in a penile inversion surgery, the healing seems to be a lot more gradual, and the pain seems to be a lot more like it fades out more quickly. Whereas I went from horrible and barely able to function to fine, between weeks 12 and 14. And I sort of just went from like being incapable of doing anything for myself at all to good in that span of about 2 weeks. Up until then, the first 3 months, I was just useless. I couldn't even care for myself in just like basic ways. So, like, I could get up and take showers, but I wasn't doing it enough. What
Well,
was
the
that?
showers would take it out of you too. So I mean, even though you were able to do these things, it was exhausting.
Yep. And then another thing would happen, that was really peculiar is because of all the swelling, I would go in and take a shower or anything, or I was standing up or moving a lot, and the swelling would start to rise. And what would happen is I could feel the pulling happening in my side in all the places where they had gotten peritoneal tissue and grafted it. Like I could feel it pulling down because the swelling was taking it. So that sucked. And I'm not anxious to do that again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do y'all want to ask me anything about this part? If y'all in the chat have questions too, you can like put a hand up. BC dubs.
I think the biggest thing for all the surgeries, though, is that it's just the lack of control that lasts the entire process, the before, the during, and the after. It's all different forms of control that I feel like someone loses, but you don't really talk about it. Like when you hear about it, you're like, oh gosh, like really? Like you don't get to decide all these things, but then
And you feel like sort of borderline geriatric, but also like you're almost a newborn. Like I had to relearn to pee at 32 years old. That's weird. That's an uncomfortable experience. I had to relearn like things like underwear skills and how like I had never had to wear a pad before. So those were new for me entirely. And then you also feel like geriatric, like you used to be able to do all these things for yourself and now other people have to do them and you feel just totally hopeless. So like that's, we don't talk enough about that part, I think. I feel sorry for like, I see, I don't feel sorry for it, that I'm happy that they can have the surgery, but I notice a lot of trans men have like a period where they have top surgery and they have to have like these things that they carry around with them, like the bulbs, for drains, and that's gotta suck. I don't.
yeah, I'm not really looking forward to that sort of thing.
So, yeah. I don't see any questions in the chat. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about like the caretaking portion. of the whole thing. And actually, I'm just going to let you get close to the mic because I'm going to dip for just a second, and I'll be right back. So, I'm going to let Kirsty talk about what it's like to take care of somebody who has one of these surgeries. I'm just going to move this microphone here a little closer to you.
Hi.
Oh. I'm going to set this here.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that switcheroo. I hit Evie's leg, so now I feel bad about that, but it's fine. So I wasn't the only person that took care of her. In fact, I wasn't here nearly as often as some of the people that were taking care of her just because of life things. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about that. I just wrote like support network with surgery and that sort of a thing. And if any admins want to help with the discussion as well.
Okay, so I have a question. I'd like to know, because like we all know that the person that is supported or whatever is in pain and everything, but what are the other things that you felt that you needed to support them in? I'm thinking, were there legal things? Were there phone calls that had to be made? Were there schedules that had to be held up? What was that like?
So, myself, along with Evie's dad, were the only people that were allowed to be called at the hospital. And because of COVID things and everything, nobody was allowed to visit her. And that's fairly the same for anybody who's having surgery now, which kind of sucks. Yeah, we're sort of figuring that out for the next one. I was supposed to be there. I'm still going to plan on just being there. If I have to, I'll pull the Jewish partner thing and just guilt them into letting me stay. So, yeah, there you go. But I relied a lot on Google Calendar when it comes to scheduling things. And a lot of the time at the beginning, I did find myself kind of doing everything on my own, not because of anyone else not offering it. A lot of folks offered. I just, at the time, thought that that was the way, because I didn't want things to get I didn't want things to get like messy. But now, and I'm still working on it, and I realize it also partially has to do with my issues with relinquishing control because it's because of lots of things, that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to delegate, and it's actually better to have more than just one person. So I don't know if I'm answering your question well, Robbie, but yeah, there were very few people that were allowed to like be in touch with medical folks, but if you kind of have like a branch system where you write down the things and then maybe a group talks about it, and you see what can be done. But also to note that ultimately it would be myself or the other person calling these people. So to know that that's kind of stressful for us. So to kind of make sure you're considering that, like,
I want to ask actually, I don't want to guess, So I want to confirm, did you say that you have ADHD as well, or no?
So actually, I'm not sure.
Okay, okay.
Um,
I was just asking because it's.
I didn't hear the question.
I think
Yeah.
it's pertinent to bring this up just because there seems to be, anecdotally at least, quite a large intersection between trans people, metagender people, and people with ADHD,
yeah.
or just the like ADHD itself. And when it comes to surgeries and stuff, I think that that's an important thing that medical practitioners and providers should consider. Like, would you say that you agree with that, like in your experience?
Well, even just as a teacher, like I feel like relaying information to people can be done a lot more user friendly. So I have anxiety and I have OCD and I have depression. We'll just list them all. So I don't really know if I have ADHD. And I don't really know if getting like a formal diagnosis would help me at all. Just because the medication that I'm already taking currently was given to me and is a similar thing to what folks with ADHD would get
Okay.
if I needed to, but it's sort of like take it if you need it. I know that doesn't really matter, but everyone's like writing in the chat about like stuff that I did. I think I'm not talking about it because I know a lot of other people did the things too. But yes,
Everybody who took care
I
of
guess
me
I
so
did.
many things.
Pardon?
Everyone who took care of me did so many things.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like say anything specifically, but like yeah, like there was dilation setup, meds, laundry, cooking. I did just do laundry earlier, and then like medical transportation. But again, other people did this too. Groceries, pharmacy trips. The day of, highly suggest if you or someone you know or a partner is getting surgery, make sure the day of when that person is going home that they are medicated. And also make sure
Strongly.
you know exactly that the medication is going to be there when you get home or very soon after. Because the day that we got home, the drive was the worst thing I think either of us have ever been through, ever. And the worst thing in a while. Can't speak for our entire lives, and I shouldn't.
Up to that point.
Up to that point. But yeah, that was the worst drive ever. And I would never wish that on anyone. And I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. It was just a terrible thing. Just a terrible thing. And to just see her in that much pain and know that I literally could do nothing about it. I just kept, all of my trauma responses started. I kept apologizing. I was crying. Nothing was getting better. It was just terrible. And she got home and she was sobbing. And
There's just nothing you can do.
and it would have been preventable, as is mentioning in the chat, if she was medicated.
I mean, they gave me, they gave me, like, I guess I'll just bleep the name out in post, but they gave me, like, that wasn't cutting it.
No.
I had been on, like, IV Dilaudid up until that morning, and it just wasn't doing it. My pain was not adequately managed when I left the hospital, and like, if you're going to be having one of those surgeries, you really do need to be prepared to, like, advocate for your pain management, because, like...
And I recognize that's hard.
Well, also, you don't want to be seen as drug-seeking, but, like, when I got home, and was on less powerful pain medicines, the people who were taking care of me had to listen to me just wail while I dilated, because I was just in so much pain.
Yeah.
This has been a point of frustration I've had with a lot of the discussion about bottom surgery too, which is a lot of trans women, I think, downplay how much it hurts.
Just not talked about. Just like another thing that's just not talked about.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's on purpose. Sorry, I had Carolina Reaper nuts, because I saw them.
I was wondering what you were doing.
Yeah, so I needed to hurt. And so I got some Carolina Reapers nuts.
Nice.
Carolina Reaper nuts. And that doesn't make it better.
As opposed to somebody called Caroline Reaper.
Carolina. I took the nuts from Carolyn Reaper and then put them in my mouth. But
Sadie.
You heard it here.
this is going in somebody's like voice, like ringtone. Just me
Like
saying
a
Carolina.
EB soundboard.
Just like Caroline Reaper and her nuts.
That wasn't one of the ways that you're imagining you were going to get famous, was it?
I swear to God, if this
That's
is
how
what
she's
does
going to
it-
get her blue check mark.
If this is what gets me a blue check mark, I was so close before. I was so close to getting a blue check mark before, and then sort of died off. And like, if this is the thing that pushes me over the edge, I would be so mad. But like,
This one, you're like, this time you're gonna be the Carolina Reaper. And not
Yeah.
the girl.
you know what though? Maybe I'll get some good like marketing deals out of that. I feel like I would get offered a place on Hot Ones.
Trello and Carolina Reaper Nuts
Yeah.
need to sponsor this podcast.
And by the way, if what's his name that does the Hot Ones podcast is
And Diet Coke.
yeah, if you're Diet Coke definitely. If you are the person who does the Hot Ones podcast, like please, I want to be on your show. I promise I'll be good. I'll be real good because like I can handle it. I've had the last.
That was a lie.
I'm not gonna behave well. I'll just be good at the hot sauce. I know who I am.
Just to be clear.
But yeah, so like pain management in surgery, big deal. Do not skimp on it. Do not don't let them minimize your pain, which they're going to be apt to do.
And it's also hard too because like there's like a guilt surrounding longing to be independent. And you know, when we were talking about how you didn't really think that you were going to be on the schedule that you were, and it was seeming like it was going to be different too, like with healing wise. Just to like there's guilt surrounding like, oh, like I shouldn't have to be. And like, you know, just take it with a grain of salt and try to be kind to yourself. And if you're caring for someone, just kind of remind them that you know they're not alone, and no one is making them feel guilty. Obviously, not being dismissive, but just like letting them know that it's okay.
Yeah, and like if you have one of these surgeries, there's a lot to process, and so much of it nobody can prepare you for because it's gonna be really personal. Just the tumult and the chaos that you're going through is not just in your body. You have to reconcile a new silhouette to your body. I have body dysmorphia. I'll give you an example of how this works. I have body dysmorphia, and I did not think that my dysmorphia really affected the bulk of my body. I didn't exhibit a lot of the common symptoms that you would find in people who have body dysmorphia. I mean, I was diagnosed. I'm diagnosably dysmorphic. But the way that manifested in me was very coincidental with my transness. A lot of the things I was dysmorphic about were also things that transition were helping with. I didn't realize I had body image issues until I had the surgery. And I didn't realize that whether I wanted to or not, I had been using sort of my penis as sort of a gauge for my weight. For like, do I weigh too much based on whether my belly was like covering any part of it at all? And when it was removed, I went through a phase of thinking I was just huge. Um, I just had thought that I was like had ballooned out because I didn't have this mile marker or this fixture anymore to sort of judge against as sort of an objective measurement. And it really messed with me and still does a little bit. Like, I still don't have a good gauge for what my body looks like anymore.
Well, and swelling,
And the swelling. The swelling's a lot too. The swelling will really mess with you. Yeah. Do we want to keep going on this topic? Because we got like folks on the other side of the world that isn't the United States. Those folks need
all
to
of
sleep
those
at
folks.
some point. Yeah. Those other lesser nations.
I
God,
Robbie,
I'm editing that out.
lesser
I'm editing
nations,
that
you
one out.
said.
Robbie, I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to. I come from the meatball capital, so you just calm yourself
Listen,
down.
my family's from Italy. I already know it's better there. So
Robbie, I'm sorry if I went on too much of a
The-
tangent for your question.
no, don't worry, don't worry. I think that you answered my question really well. I just wanted to sort of hook back into the fact that you said that or both of you sort of said that you don't really talk about the sort of post struggles of um these kind of surgeries for trans women. And it's very interesting because in trans masculine persons, it's very common to talk about only the struggles and pretty much advice from doing surgery to nether regions. Like there's a common saying where it's like, I want to do bottom surgery, but the techniques aren't good enough or the methods aren't sophisticated enough, and that keeps people from even
Yeah.
pursuing that
I've heard
route.
that.
So it's quite interesting that the conversation is very, very different.
There's a lot of I think the difference is like producing an external organ in this case requires a different sort of like aesthetic care. The aesthetics of the
Yeah.
result matters very, very much, right? Especially for like, do you come off as passable, which is important to a lot of people. And like there's function, and it seems like they've got the function down pretty well. For the most
Yeah.
part, like as good as it's going to get for a little while. But aesthetically speaking, there's a lot of, I think, pretty universally agreed on. There's a lot of room for improvement there in that
Yeah.
way, depending on how you want to measure. Whereas, the amount of people who are going to see inside my vagina are, single digits, probably in my entire life.
Unless you have a speculum nearby.
Or unless you have YouTube and you've looked up my surgery, in which case you can see the inside of my vagina. Yep, that's on there. It's weird to see inside your own body. Anyway, but yeah, so I think there's less emphasis on that part and more on the medical disruption in trans feminine communities. And I think the other part of it is trans feminine communities have a different, it's almost like there's a bit of a roadblock on talking about the emotional and mental health aspects of stuff because we are so frequently questioned in those ways. It's hard as a trans woman, and my partners and my friends can tell you, it's hard for me to discuss my mental health because not just is that so personal, but it's very common to disregard us as mentally unwell. And therefore, like, our gender just doesn't matter. And so I think the community has internalized that a lot, where openly discussing our emotions only happens to sort of a point. And that's sort of like in the gender euphoric sort of area there. Like, you'll see a lot of discussion of like, oh, I cry at movies now, things like that. But you won't see a lot of discussion about the trauma of transition, and transition is traumatic. As I'm nearing the end of mine, I'm realizing the last 3 years have been sort of traumatic, and that I'm gonna have a lot of processing to do when the surgery is over. And that's heavy, and we don't talk about it at all. So I think we just need to be able to discuss it more. And I think more is about mental health and not wanting to appear. A lot of folks don't want to appear as though they are stereotyping womanhood in some way through emotional presentation. So that too. There's just a lot of like, I'm not going to talk about this because I don't want to appear to be stereotyping women.
There's some guilt surrounding it too. Like, oh, I shouldn't, like I have all this going for me, so I really shouldn't be.
There is also
feeling
guilt.
this way.
I mean, the amount of trans women who can get this surgery, like literally just have access to it, of the trans women that exist, maybe 4 or 5% will be able to get this surgery. Not for a lack of needing it, but like, Steph is in the UK. The waiting list to get a vaginoplasty there is, like, for a lot of people, 5-6 years.
And then isn't it like the
Yeah.
similar like proving process to what Robbie was talking about? You have
Even
to.
more. The UK is really brutal. So the UK really leans, and Steph, feel free to correct me on this if I'm speaking out of turn. But my understanding is the UK leans real heavy into WPATH, which is an organization that produces the standards of care for trans people. And my understanding is that trans women, or I also think trans men, but have to live as their gender for a year before they are even given hormones.
So I think
Yeah.
Delenn has. I mean, she's much more qualified to speak about this because she's
Been
lived it.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a trans woman, so I don't want to, in the same way as you speak out of turn. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember Delenn speaking about this and saying, yes, this is the reality. Like people, medical practitioners, they say that you have to be living as your gender for at least a year, and obviously that's very difficult for trans women because
couldn't have
you
done it.
get you
Yeah.
get abused for it, and it's not safe.
And the other thing is, like, pre HRT, like, I could not have done that first, because I had clothing before I started my HRT. I had clothing and I wouldn't wear it,
Yeah.
because the shape of my body was so wrong that the clothing just emphasized the shape of my body being wrong. It would have made me sick to have had to dress and perform womanhood when I didn't feel my body was up to the task. It would have been, I don't know that I could have. I think that would have been the end of it. I think I would have just not. And there would have been some pretty dire consequences for me. So, yeah, all of that to say is, like, the amount of like, I have guilt over this. I have so much guilt over this that a lot of the trans women I know that I consider to be like the lucky ones, the models for how a transition should have gone, a lot of them are lucky to have had bottom surgery in the first 5 years or 10 years. Facial feminization surgery and breast augmentation are two surgeries that I got approved at 100%. And for most trans women, that does not happen. Getting them approved at all is rare. Getting them approved at 100% is effectively unheard of.
Well, and a lot of the time, people will perform facial feminization surgeries like separately, like this
They'll do
surgery,
it piece by piece.
and then this. Yeah.
And, all of that has happened within 3 years. I literally will be celebrating the 3rd year of my anniversary next year, or the third year of my transition, next year, and I will have had everything on my list done before that happens. I had a checklist when I started, and I've marked everything off of it after the surgery. And that just doesn't happen, and it leads to a lot of feelings of guilt and an inability to seek out help that you need. partially because there's no one around who knows. There are so few trans women who have had this surgery, and of them, most of them tend to leave the community because of the abuse they get internally. That there's nobody to ask how that felt. And then on top of that, there's this feeling of like being alienated from your own community by having these procedures. I feel that. I feel very like you don't realize how much a lot of trans feminine communities are about the penis until you are in there and you don't have one. And you realize that 90% of the discussion just doesn't involve you anymore. And that does feel really alienating. I don't even know. I mean, we just, like, there are so many reasons that trans women don't talk about things. And we've really got to work on it. But it also means less shaming each other for quote unquote privileges. That one's been really bad. I mean, if I weren't doing this work, if I weren't so interested in this work, if I weren't so invested in this work, I don't know that I would have stayed through it. I probably would have just gotten stealth. And that's sad. That happens to so many trans women, that the ones who need help can't get it because they can't reveal themselves as trans, or they can't access it inside of their own communities. And I'm hearing you say, Robbie, that doesn't transfer, that it's not like that in trans mass communities.
Well, not really. We are, I'm talking about we. I can't speak for everyone, but my experience is that if you have had, all the surgeries on your personal checklist, then you are sort of uh, well, you're put up on a pedestal of what could happen, or what could happen if I was brave enough, if I had the privileges, if I had the resources available to me. So that it's kind of different there.
I do get
And
pedestaled a bit like that, yeah.
yeah, and especially since the negative or by effects of a surgery are so talked about, that anyone who basically went through it without major complications will be revered as a survivor of this sort of.
These, I mean, the top surgeries that I've seen done are just, oof. It's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the operations to really speak of them. I think one of the big gaps that I feel, and I feel sad about, is that I am not capable of creating a group that operates like my surgery group, but for transmasculine surgeries. And I feel
We'll get there.
There's a need for it, and
we'll get there.
There's a need for it, and
yeah.
I wish it could exist, because there's been a lot of traffic that I've gotten to the surgery group that has just been entirely driven by the fact that these resources just don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got, like, we're at time. Do you all want to pick up another topic, or?
There was, oh, sorry, yes, does anyone, I have.
No,
do you all want to hang out for another 15, 20 minutes? Move on?
Yeah, no stress.
Steph?
As in, I'm okay to continue.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm not muted, am I?
You're not now.
Am I being an idiot? No.
No,
Yeah, I'm good to continue.
Okay, yeah, let's pick up the next topic. Let's just move on.
There was one, I almost forgot to put it in from the Discord, that was asking about suggestions for setting boundaries with parents or family. For, like, if you live with family, or if you live away but still have contact, like, as a trans or meta person. So, didn't want to leave before answering
Yeah, that's a good
that
one. That was a good one. That's hard, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some, like, techniques that helped me set boundaries when coming out, and that helped me to set boundaries during the sort of intermediary period where people were having to learn a new name to reference me by, and things like that. But, I mean, I think the strongest boundary setting I did was with my dad. when I came out, because I told him on the phone, I was like, I just need to talk. I need you to listen. And, you know, and I said to him, you can have a living daughter or a dead son. Those are your options, and I'm not letting you pick. And I think that really helped communicate the gravity of the situation to him. And then, like, in terms of, like, getting people to, like, respect my name and things like that, I had a 3 strikes rule. And whenever I didn't get mad at people, I gave everybody 3 Bs, you know? When they pushed it with me, I would say, all right, that's 1. And then they would do it again. That's 2. And the 3rd one, I would just leave. I would just remove myself from the situation.
To
whatever it was.
clarify, did you say that out loud or just like that in your head?
Oh, no, I said it out loud.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to give them a little audio feedback that not only had I heard them, I had processed what they were doing. You know, but without giving them the reward of attention. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being like, I heard you. Don't worry, I heard you. And then, like, I don't draw a scene to them. I just leave. If they have a problem, you know, if they can't refer to me properly, I don't need to be there. But that's sort of contingent on having the privilege to leave, whatever the situation is, to having that level of control over it, you know? So, like, if you're 15 and can't drive a car, then you can't really leave the holiday party. Do you know what I mean? So there are limits to what you can do. And I would encourage anybody to look for what control they have and to leverage that in setting boundaries. Because a lot of times getting people to change their behavior is really a conversation of, like, if you continue to treat me this way, the consequence is that I'm going to do this other thing. Like, I'm going to take my ball and do whatever I need to do with it.
And be sure that you can actually follow through with whatever you're saying.
Yeah, don't set fake boundaries, because that just teaches people that they can walk all over them.
Yeah,
Do you all have
and
any thoughts?
I think, you know, that it's really important to set boundaries. It's really important to say, no, I don't like this. This is not comfortable for me. But then there comes, like, situations for every one of us where you can't really do that, where you are put in a position where you could defend yourself to no ends, and, you know, tire yourself out, and there's this saying, you know, don't let the bastards grind you down. And I just want it to be known that it's okay to feel ground down. Like, that was my main takeaway from being in a situation where I couldn't sort of get out of that. Was it's okay to feel that you're ground out, and it's okay to sort of realize that and sort of look for other ways to regain energy, or sort of, you know, re-energize yourself. And that's really important.
Like,
And
oops, sorry. Like, I have there's a member of my family that I know is just never gonna get it. Not, because he doesn't want to, he just can't. And I've just, you know, I've come to terms with that. And that was helpful for me. It wasn't great. It doesn't feel great. I'm not gonna, like, say, like, it's fine. But, like, coming to terms with that for me was about as good as it was gonna get for that. And it, especially with this person, it was much better than me trying to fight for it. And honestly, I feel a lot more in control than if I had continued to try.
Sometimes it's the lesser of multiple evils, isn't it? Like, there's so
Yeah.
many different ways that things could fall out. And yeah, I think a lot of us have experienced just this inward battle of like, do I do this and suffer this, or do I do that and suffer that?
And like,
You know,
yeah. Again, to clarify, like, doesn't feel great. I don't like it. I don't like it. But, you know, also being able to just take a step back from myself and know that I do have people, that was helpful. And part of that is my chosen family with y'all. So that's why, you know, everyone always should have a chosen family. And you always talk about this.
The
and
trans
that's-
family. I talk about
Yeah.
the trans family all the time. Even if I think there's a difference between the trans family and the chosen family, though. I
Yeah.
don't think they're the same thing.
I agree. Actually, I felt something specific that is just not the same. Like that, it's I don't know. It's difficult to describe it.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was gonna expand on the whole trans family thing, but I want to hear your thing first.
No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. We've got a whole bunch of people with ADHD. I feel bad because like a thought starts to come out of my mouth, and then I do the thing where like, oh yeah, button that up. Oops. But no, like the amount of conversations I've had with parents, especially. I'm just gonna bring this over. Welcome to ASMR with Evie. The amount of conversations I've had with parents where I will say, like, don't get offended about this, but you are not about to be your kid's only parent. And what I'm trying to communicate to cisgender parents is there's stuff that's going to happen in your kid's life that you will never comprehend, and there's nothing you can do about that. In the same way that no matter how much I come off as a cis person, and no matter how much as people read me as one, I can sit at a table with cis people. They don't have to know I'm there, but I'm never going to be cis. And that's true of those kids. I think people really do need a family. They need a community that understands them in that aspect and in that way of their life.
Connection's so important.
And like it does. It makes it so hard to connect to people because you see the world differently than they do, like a lot differently. And it's like subtle the way you see the differences in the world, but it's also blunt and really dramatic. So it's a huge change. And yeah, I really the other thing I wanted to emphasize here on this whole conversation of setting boundaries with family and protecting those boundaries is your ability to set boundaries is related to your power in any dynamic, and whether or not the people you are setting a boundary with are going to respect that power. We can opine about bodily autonomy or the right to self-direct, the right to leave a situation that is not good for you. That doesn't mean you have the power to do it. And the number one most important thing is that you survive. Like, if you set boundaries and you end up dying over those boundaries, then that's still a huge loss for the community, and not that was not good. Right.
Keep you safe.
Yeah, you have to stay safe first and foremost, and that's hard because there are so many people that I talk to. I work with a lot of trans kids, and a lot of them are like, "How can I get XYZ harmful family member to come around?" And I'm like, probably not at all. You probably don't have the power to do that, and you might not even have the power to avoid them entirely. The power you need to take right now is for keeping yourself safe, physically alive and safe, so that, like, this is going to be bad, this is going to be traumatic. You're going to have a lot to unpack about this time period in the future, but you'll be alive for it. And I mean, that sounds very shrewd to say it that way, but I don't know how else to say it. Like, we need to keep our siblings alive, you know? So,
It's true, and I think I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that, it's very important to realize for ourselves and also for everyone around us supporting us that we are uh so many things at the same time. We are work
mhm,
selves and free time selves and school selves and
mhm.
parent selves, and it's okay to regulate boundaries differently in these different aspects of ourselves as well.
That's like
It's
that
it's cool
thread.
to, yeah, yeah,
That actually does make me think of that thread where people were so upset at the suggestion that maybe that nurse should not be telling off patients who say transphobic things. Um, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And like it really brings that one home for me because I was like, this person could lose their job. And like, do they have a family they're responsible for? Like, what's the calculation there? Mm. I think a lot of times we lean a little too hard into the like, no, you should set boundaries at all costs. The only thing that matters is your pride. And that's not true. You don't get to have a pride if you die, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, it made me think about that because of the way people were responding to, like, the idea that maybe this person should do the best they can within the boundaries of not getting fired. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Useful to have allies in
Mm-hmm.
in those systems that we so desperately need them to be in. So there's that too. Not only speaking for the individual person's personal well-being, but also just in terms of the larger picture going on here. Like if every single person who was trying to do allyship just you know alienated themselves from all these spaces, then we're going to have nobody left. So I think that's important as well to consider.
And the other thing that I think and this is probably a note to end on because, like, it's getting to be about dinner time here, and I know it's getting to be bedtime there,
Yeah.
is, and I harp on this all the time, and I feel like cis folks just don't get it, but a lot of trans folks don't get it too, which is we gain a lot more by building than we do by, like, burning, you know? When people do something harmful, that sucks, and we want justice for that. But justice is not a constructive concept in that way. Like, you can have a constructive concept of justice, but this particular variant of justice is brushing right up against retribution, and that doesn't build anything. That same, like, let's go back to the example with our like nurse or that we had in the group, right? And this person was anonymous, so I don't feel afraid to talk about the subject. We had a nurse in the group ask if she should have corrected a transphobic patient, and my feelings about transphobia aside for a minute, I think that the better solution there is to make it less likely that there are transphobic patients in that way. Like, that there are patients who have that sort of antagonistic view of transness. And that's done through education, that's done through building.
Yeah, if
Like, you eliminate the spaces where they can grow that way. People are always growing. It's a question of how they're going to grow.
Yeah, and if you, depending on how you talk to folks, then they'll be put in that sort of fight or flight or freeze response, you know,
Yeah.
where they're not going to listen to what you have to say. They're in a completely different headspace than you are, so they're just not going to be able to hear what you have to say.
And honestly, I think that, like, dealing with quote unquote transphobia is the lowest form of activism. I think that is the same sort of philosophy that our healthcare system operates on here in the United States, which is we'll deal with it when it's a problem. Where, like, once things get bad, then we'll deal with it. But by then it's too bad, and it's harder to solve. Like that patient in the hospital, what good was going to come out of correcting that person other than the ideological purity of having corrected them, right? Like,
I
that
guess
wasn't
a
giving.
good,
Mhm.
sorry, a good analogy, I suppose, could be treating the symptom rather than the cause, right?
Or even preventative care,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I mean, here in the United States, like, they actually de-incentivize preventative care in most places. So, for instance, your health insurance will not pay for you to have like a gym membership to like do cardio, but it will pay for you to have a heart surgery, right? That sort of
Right.
thing. A $25 a month membership could have saved them millions of dollars
Mm-hmm.
in surgeries, but they just didn't do it because they didn't want to prioritize that. They prioritize things when they're bad enough to deal with, rather than looking at infrastructural causes. So that's the thing, is like we really need to look more. And I don't begrudge anybody whose response to seeing sort of an outcropping of anti-trans attitudes wherever they may pop up, is to sort of be resigned about that. Like, I don't judge people for not jumping into the fray and putting themselves at risk in whatever way that requires, because the truth is it's already too late. And creating like a hostile climate about it only makes it more likely to become visible.
Yeah.
Whereas just dismissing it out of hand, like, okay, right, heard you, cool, distract the people, move them elsewhere, move the conversation elsewhere. Just don't give that attention so it doesn't grow, you know. But anywho, gosh, boundaries are hard. And like they're so unique. And I guess I don't know, do you have any like final thoughts on the whole boundary thing in general, and like how to set and maintain them?
I mean, in the spirit of the group, I'd like to say that a good sort of rule of thumb is knowing who wants to learn more. If they don't want to learn more, don't waste your time on it, honestly.
So true. Yeah.
Um,
That was
um,
the mindset that I took with my family members. So yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
get the wins where you can get them.
Yeah.
The wins feel good, and they make you stronger for. When I was coming out, I actually did that. I had a spreadsheet of, because I'm a
What?
Virgo. But I had a
Crazy.
spreadsheet of the people I wanted to come out to, and there was a line in there that was 2 E's for everyone else. That was like my big one. And so I had spreadsheets maintaining people based on like how likely I thought they were to react badly to me coming out versus how much they could actually hurt me. Like, if a person is a total stranger to me, they can't do me harm. I'm never going to see them again. It doesn't matter. The harm is limited to whatever violent response they may or may not have exactly in that moment. Whereas with family members, the harm was potentially much greater, and I was also not sure how they were going to respond. So I went with people that I felt more confident about and worked up my power so that when it came time to come out to people who could scare me more, I was in a better place. And the last thing is, like, when you're setting a boundary, use your I words. Like, talk about yourself and your feelings, not the other person's intentions or thoughts. Like, there's a difference between I feel hurt when you say that and you're being transphobic. You know? I think you get a lot further with the, like, I references. They're just disarming.
And you can't argue with them as well. They're not something that's like, you're this, or attempting to project something onto. I mean, it's not necessarily a projection, but you can't really argue with someone who says I feel this way.
Well, and like we've had this issue in the group before. Like people will say, like people will try to do that. They'll be like, I feel like you're trying to manipulate me. That's not what we mean. Like, um, I feel scared right now for the following reasons. Like, um, I feel scared that I don't have control of the situation, right? If you're being manipulated, that's a lack of control, right? You can say it that way, right? There are ways to phrase things where you're not pointing at somebody else, because there's this expression when you point at somebody else, when you point a finger at someone else, there are three more pointing back at you.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of take that to heart a little bit when it comes to putting actions or putting belief systems onto other people. Um, yeah, I words help a lot. Knowing your shit helps too. Like being able to set a firm boundary includes knowing what the boundary is and why you need it. If you can't communicate your boundaries, you can't set them. So maybe you should join like a learning group.
You
Um,
wanna
where you might want to learn more
Yeah.
about boundary setting. Um,
New group.
New group. You might want to
Announced
learn more.
right here.
God, I don't need any more new groups right now.
No.
We've got 2 more in the cooker, y'all. We've actually got 3 in the cooker.
Yeah.
One I don't really count as one of our like flagship groups, but we have 3 more in the cooker, and
It's gonna be awesome.
I'm so excited about them. We should button up. Do y'all want to we should like put a bow on this. Do y'all have any things you want to say to close out?
I just want to reiterate how much I love dumplings. That's
really
what I
important.
want to say.
It's really important.
No,
I'm glad that we
I
came
don't
full
know
circle
whether
on
that's
that.
going to
That's
be.
the takeaway.
I wish we could have some soup dumplings. I really have craving now.
We could try.
We could try.
And I'd like to say that I am super stoked about what's going on with the network in the future, and super stoked about my co-admins. You're all awesome, and
Oh, right back
I
at
love you
you.
too, token straight.
you know, I always want to learn more. I hope everyone else wants to learn more as well.
We love having you.
Especially
with us.
fellow straight people like you who want to
Yeah.
learn more.
Any other straight people feel like they want to learn more. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything you want to say for like buttoning up? Any announcements? Closing thoughts?
Oh man, I really wish that I had something serious to say, but
Yeah.
I'm not that person
The
today.
dumplings were important.
The dumplings are really important. Do not undercut yourself. Joanna, I saw you light up. You got something?
I didn't mean to light up. I'm just sitting here working on my computer while listening to y'all.
Must be the tippy tappies. Lighting your mic up.
I had it muted.
Well, then I don't know. You turned green. Calm down there, Brucelina Banner.
So I didn't.
Okay, well, I'll close off. I just want to thank everybody who joined us today to listen in live. I'm going to try and have this episode edited and ready to go by Wednesday. We will see. I have, for some reason, this like intervening time period is when people decided they really needed me for public speaking engagements. So like I've got a very full dance card for the remaining 4 days of this time period of my life. My surgery is in 4 days, so that's big news, and that's
You
really
like
gonna
being busy though, right?
What?
You like being busy though,
Do
right?
love being busy. I don't know what to do. That's like I tell my therapist, I'm like, I don't even know what to do if I don't have something to do.
That's some Virgo shit right there. I was just about to say, don't work yourself out. You're gonna have a lot to deal with in just a few days.
Yeah, I was in this I'm gonna make a little side track here. I'm in this like kink group on Facebook because I'm in all the spaces where there's any chance at all. Like, first of all, yes, kink, but also like I will go in any space at all where there's any chance that we're gonna be mentioned, like as a group of people. So I can sort of be there to step in on conversations that are being run primarily by cis people. And where was I? Oh yeah, somebody was asking about like what the kinkiest astrological signs were. And I was like, and like Virgos were right up there. And I was like, yeah, Virgos, we're going to rearrange your bookshelf and then you. So, like, don't you worry. We know what we're doing, and we're just very methodical about it. So it's a little,
Yeah.
so it's a little wow react. But yeah, other stuff. We've got some really big releases of projects and things like that coming out in the next few months. This is probably going to be our last podcast recording for a little while. Because I'm getting gel work done. I literally do not know how capable of speaking I am going to be for several weeks. So there's going to be sort of a stretch between this episode and the next one. But I don't know. How are you all feeling about using Zoom for this? I feel like this went well.
I love this.
Yeah, I feel like this was
I like
good.
it.
And I like that it kept the individual. I mean, granted, fingers crossed, because if I get to the end of this and I find out it didn't record, I'm going to be so mad.
Oh my god.
Now, it says it's recording.
And it does record audio separately than video. I do remember that
Yeah.
from my teaching days.
It says it says it's recording, and it says that it's recording a different track for everybody. If so, lifesaver, big deal. So fingers crossed. Anyway, oh, I'm recording locally. I did not want this being on cloud servers. Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline for the rest of the year. I'm very excited about that. It's going to be sort of a slow roll, but hope y'all are ready for when January rolls around, because
It's my birthday.
I'm that part. That's the important part.
That's the
But
important
also, I'm sort of leaving the surgery. I'm going to be a New Year's Eve, and
Nice.
but also like New Year, new me, bitches, and I'm going to have no checklist left to work on come January. So I'm gonna
No
need things
true
to.
word
Virgo
has been
on the
said.
loose.
That
It's-
wasn't very Virgo of you.
Don't worry, I'm making a new one right now, and you all are gonna suffer with me. So January, going next year is gonna be really huge for us. I think it's gonna be a really banner year. I think.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Me too.
Same.
Me too. All right. I guess let's just. Y'all ready to call it quits?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yep.
in that case, I always like to leave any sort of like public presentation with sort of the same word. That word is metta, which is a Pali word for loving kindness. It's a big part of my religion and my religious practice, and it is probably my favorite word. So I just want everybody to know that I wish you metta in everything you do for yourself and for the people around you. I hope that you radiate that, and I hope that you receive it. It has been lovely talking to you for the last almost 3 hours together, and I'm really looking forward to being able to do the next one when I'm in my new body. So have a really lovely rest of your day, however much of it is left. Love you.
Bye-bye. Yay, I did get compliments on my PA, how I did it.
I think it says a lot about me that you said PA and the first thing I thought was Prince Albert. I feel uncomfortable.
Public address.
I feel uncomfortable with the
That's
person
depraved.
that I am. Yeah, I feel nervous about who I am. Okay, I'm just making sure that I can